just 24 hours before India scripts history. India's Vikram headed for victory. Vikram snaps stunning moon images. India prays for Chandrayaan 3. Chandrayaan's smooth sailing continues. Science and spirit in celestial dance. Our top focus at 6 p.m. prime.
Good evening. You're watching the special edition of 6 p.m. Prime with me, Akshita Nandagopal. In 24 hours from now and 4 minutes exactly, you will see the soft landing of Vikram on the moon tomorrow evening. And I'm going to be getting you all the updates. As you can see, I'm standing here at what's called the Isro complex. It is the mission control complex, and behind me is where Team Chandrayaan is currently seated, tracking every update that comes in on lander Vikram as he heads closer and closer to the moon. I unfortunately can't pan our cameras because this is a high security complex. We've gotten the permission to stand here, but this is pretty much all I can show you for today. More, I promise, coming up tomorrow. I'm very, very excited to also tell you that in about 15 minutes from now, we'll be joined by an astronaut, by Chris Hadfield, the first Canadian to have walked in space. He's built several space stations. He's had several firsts. He will in fact commanded the International Space Station as well. And he's going to be joining me at 6:15 p.m. to talk about India's space moment, to talk about our moon mission and much, much more. First, as always, let's take a look at the headlines. Delhi rape Babu and wife's attempt to evade arrest foiled. Accused wife sent to one-day judicial custody. DCW chief writes to Amit Shah, demands meeting with victim or kin. Prime Minister Modi lands in Johannesburg to participate in the 15th BRICS summit. Chinese President Xi to also participate. Big suspense over in India-China bilateral. Shocking Bihar VVIP culture on display. Ambulance blocked for Chief Minister Nitish convoy despite patient's family crying. Bihar top cop meanwhile seen holding umbrella for RJD Supremo Lalu Yadav. Superstar Rajnikant defends his gesture of bowing down to touch UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath's feet. Says it's a habit. Congress mocks Rajni Yogi meet. Calls it a courtesy call to the next Prime Minister. India's teen chess prodigy Pragnananda squares off against the 5-time world champion Magnus Carlsen in Baku for the World Chess Championships. And high drama in Telangana after BRS releases first list of candidates for winter polls. Congress mocks KCR for contesting from 2 seats as BRS is clearly afraid of losing. I know I've been using the phrase the final countdown rather loosely, but this truly is it. It's 6:03 right now, so tomorrow at this time we'll be 1 minute away from the soft landing of Vikram on the lunar surface. Remember that it will start in less than 24 hours from now. At 5:20 p.m. is when officially the soft landing will begin. It's going to be about a 44-minute process because from the closest orbit that Vikram is currently in, that Chandrayaan 3 currently is in, it'll then start inching closer and closer to the south pole of the moon. At this point, ISRO says all conditions are in favor, everything is ready, the green signal has been given, and in repeated updates shared by our ISRO scientists, they say there's nothing to be worried about. Everything looks good, everything is running as per schedule, and that at this point, it definitely looks like 6:04 p.m. is when we can expect that big breaking news, which we'll tell you here on India Today. As I'll be inside the very complex that I'm standing outside of today, we will be getting you live updates of what's happening, the mood in the mission control complex, the mood among our ISRO heroes. Let me take this across to our reporter. Sagai Raj is joining me live from Bengaluru, Milind Sharma from Ahmedabad. I also have Abhishek Anand getting us the latest from the national capital. Sagai, to you first. Round up for us the updates that have come in really from ISRO today.
Absolutely, the entire ISRO is excited and they are quite confident that this time it will be a successful landing for lander Vikram. Remember, there are a lot of updates which has been done. The software has been enhanced, the hardware has been enhanced. There were several the trial which was being done in the ISRO's lab to find out that lander this time, and it lands safely, it is not going to crash. And after a successful trial, now they are quite confident that this time it will land without any kind of hassle. Remember, last time there was no special camera on the lander. This time you have a camera. The camera will capture the moon surface. It will find out whether there is any kind of craters or boulders on the surface, and it will try to land at a place where there is no hassle, there is no problem for the lander. And even the radius of the landing of the lander has been increased. Last time it was close to half a kilometer. This time they have a liberty to land in a radius of 4 kilometers. And thanks to the software enhancement which has been done in this particular lander, and also the velocity meter which has been used, the advanced one, which is also helping them to reduce the speed, the velocity when it's coming towards the moon, which will also control the speed of it according to the gravitational force of the moon. So as of now, the scientists are quite confident that they have learnt from their past mistakes, and this time it should be a successful one.
You know, there's an interesting aspect to this, and this is a news break that we got in earlier today, which has sent quite a ripple on social media. Everyone's talking about it, which is the plan B of ISRO. Milind Sharma got us that news break after her conversation with the ISRO team based in Ahmedabad. Milind, there's a lot of talk about this plan B. Will ISRO go ahead with that soft landing tomorrow? Is it going to be pushed to Sunday? Can you just kind of clear the air on that? I think we need to put it in perspective for our viewers that this is just a contingent. This is a plan B.
Definitely, Akshita. In fact, I'm so proud to, be bringing to you this report from just outside of ISRO, Ahmedabad, wherein my colleague Sagai and you as well have been talking about the kind of technology upgrades that have been done for Vikram lander. India wants to be ready with a plan B. This doesn't mean that they are definitely going to delay the launch. It just means that everything needs to fall in place for India to land at that crucial time, as you and I are reporting now, just at 6:04 p.m. tomorrow at this particular time. And for that, every situation needs to fall in place, whether it's the velocity, the speed reduction, the thrust, the propulsions, the kind of, systemic environment around the lander. Everything needs to be on point, and that would perhaps become the perfect soft landing. And of course, prayers and, jubilation within the Indian citizens as well for this. But the scientists are not leaving any stone unturned to be prepared and that is why the plan B has been programmed into the Vikram lander. It will only be a delay of 4 more days, which is going to be 27th of August, because India has to try. India has been trying, whether it's Chandrayaan 2, the orbiter mission. Of course, the landing couldn't happen, but Chandrayaan 3, 21 subset which means equipments have been changed within this particular lander, which will help. And if we talk about the cameras, the ulterior sensors, they've all been tried and tested at the Isro Space Application Center in Ahmedabad in Gujarat. And that's a proud moment as well. And that's why the plan B, because of course when the plan A doesn't work, there has to be a plan B. And fingers crossed for the plan A to work, which is the 23rd of August, when the lander will be 30 kilometers from the moon's surface. India could become, I would say, fingers crossed, once again, the first country to land on the southern polar region,
because at this point ISRO is maintaining everything is going as per plan. Milind, thank you for getting us that update. My apologies for interrupting, but I just have to quickly bring in Abhishek Anand as well before we move on to our next report. Abhishek, the government also very closely tracking what's happening. You know, I've been very amused to see all of the reactions coming in from the Aam Aadmi. Really, you've got prayers, you've got people rushing to religious sites to offer prayers, many of them putting out well wishes and wishes for our ISRO scientists.
Well, Akshita, in Nehru Planetarium in Delhi, this is the situation right now. You can see there are multiple screens. You can see this is the one TV screen here. There are multiple screens and a live telecast will be shown here. The landing burn countdown is here. The touchdown countdown is here. The mission clock, and most importantly, this is how the Chandrayaan has reached the moon's orbit. These are the details which are being shown to the general public. Tomorrow there will be a huge crowd, so special preparations are here to handle such a huge crowd. And you can see how detailed these informations are for general public because of the enthusiasm, because of the proud factor of India being able to do it. This is the orbit of the moon, and if I request my camera person to focus here, these are the details. These are the details of the Chandrayaan. The Chandrayaan is here on the Apollo, which is 134 kilometers. This is the orbit's farthest area when a spacecraft is actually orbiting the moon, and this is the Perilune, just only 25 kilometers
I
on the
was
southern side
I was
of
at
the
a
moon.
similar planetarium here in Bengaluru as well, and you can see that all of them are taking steps to ensure that people, particularly students, youngsters, can visit these planetariums to get all the details. And like I said earlier as well in my broadcast, youngsters today are talking about landers and rovers, courtesy our ISRO scientists. Thanks very much, Abhishek. Thanks, Sagai, and to Milind for getting us all of those details. So lander Vikram at this point is just about 25 kilometers from the moon. I know that sounds extremely close, but remember it's an elliptical orbit. So the closest point is 25 kilometers. The farthest is about 135 kilometers. And it's going to be, nail-biting to say the least. From 5:20 tomorrow evening till 6:04 is when the soft landing process will commence. From 6,000 kilometers per hour, they'll have to bring it down to zero, and that very steadily will have to be done. The last 4-5 minutes, the last 100 meters is when all of the sensors, the thrusters will come in and ensure that very carefully lander Vikram is brought down. And there, it'll be all about how our scientists have fared, how the design has been done. Because at that point, the scientists seated here behind me, Team Chandrayaan, will just have to keep their arms crossed and hope for the best. But let me round up for you all the updates that have come in the last 24 hours in our next report.
India's moon mission is hours away from a historic climax. Chandrayaan's Vikram lander is approaching the moon rendezvous. Saying hello to Chandrama, snapping breathtaking images from close vicinity, showing moon in all its glory, with details of the unexplored far side complete with billion-year-old craters. Indian Space Agency asserted that the mission is fully on track. The system is undergoing regular checks to ensure a smooth touchdown.
It is almost similar to what we designed or developed for Chandrayaan 2, except for instead of orbiter now, because orbiter is anyway working fine and it is still useful and it is giving a lot of important data which will be utilized for Chandrayaan 3 landing also. So we decided that orbiter will be replaced by a propulsion module. Which duty is to take it to the orbit of moon surface.
ISRO is not taking any chances. especially after crash of the Russian moon mission. Keeping another landing site ready for Sunday touchdown if parameters aren't ideal on Wednesday. Former Isro chief K. Sivan broke down the final maneuvers moments before the planned touchdown.
I want to start by asking you about the lunar mission of the Russians, which crashed very unfortunately over the weekend without being able to land successfully. You know, given what has happened with the Lunar 25, which was Russia's first attempt to land a spacecraft off the moon, and that ending in failure, you know, would that increase the levels of anxiety of the team in the Space Center of Isro at this moment? Does that make you one extra level more anxious?
No, it is not so. First of all, Luna mission failure and this one, they are not related. Luna actually that is have its own system, its own the sensor, thrusters, and it may have its own characteristics. But we have our own system, our own thruster, our own sensors, which it has been functioning very nicely and without any problem. And till now we are achieved what we want in a perfect way, and I am sure that this will repeat on 23rd also. So we will get a good landing, and we are not getting disturbed by the Luna 25 failure. They are not related, they are not a similar system, they are different system. Okay. So we are confident that we will be able to achieve without any problem.
A billion cheers, prayers and wishes are meanwhile pouring in as India roots for Chandrayaan 3.
एक बहुत बड़ा इतिहास भारत के सभी विशेषज्ञों ने, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों ने रचा है और प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में भारत नई ऊंचाइयां तो छू ही रहा था। भारत का तिरंगा केवल देश के अंदर नहीं लेकिन विश्व पटल पर अब हमारी यही कोशिश है कि वो तिरंगा चांद पे भी गाड़ के रखा जाए।
Special pujas are being held in temples and namaz is being offered in mosques, all for Chandrayaan success. The lander is expected to touch down on Moon's south polar region at 6:04 p.m. on Wednesday. We wish India a grand success in conquering the moon. With Akshita Nandagopal in Bengaluru and Milan Sharma in Ahmedabad, Bureau Report, India Today.
And it's my absolute pleasure to be joined here on India Today by Chris Hadfield, former commander of the International Space Station and author of the Apollo murders. Just to give you a brief sense of all that Chris has achieved, he's flown in 3 missions, built 2 space stations, performed 2 spacewalks, and was the first Canadian to have walked in space. So you'd understand why I'm particularly excited about his new book, The Defector, that is, in fact, releasing on October 10th. That's coming out. Chris, good morning. Congratulations on your new book, and thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. I've been seeing, from your social media interactions that you've been tracking the Chandrayaan 3 moon mission very, very closely. Just so for our viewers to understand from an expert perspective, from your perspective, how hard really is a soft landing on the moon?
Well, thank you and good evening. Yeah, I heard someone say 1 billion cheers for Vikram, and add my voice as one of those billion cheers. It's immensely exciting, but as you say, it's extremely hard. It's 400,000 kilometers away, and we're landing way down to the south, 70 degrees south. It's as if you were landing on the edge of Antarctica, and you're trying to do it where the final last few meters or few feet of touchdown, you're just counting on the automatic systems. And so there can always be a boulder in the way or an uneven spot on the ground, even though they've chosen a plateau. And I know that the Russians had no success earlier this week. Remember, they've launched 27 missions to the moon, and they only landed 7 times, and the last one was a failure. So it's still exquisitely difficult. But with the tremendous experience gained in Chandrayaan 1, which helped discover water on the moon, in Chandrayaan 2, which has been mapping the moon ever since, and now with sort of the granddaughter of all of those, of Chandrayaan 3, I'm really optimistic and excited about the landing that's going to be happening just slightly under 24 hours from now.
I loved how you referred to Chandrayaan 3 as the granddaughter of these missions. It's so aptly put. I'm going to borrow that phrase also in the next 24 hours. You referred to Lunar 25, and the reason I talk about it right now, Chris, is look, Russia has attempted this, as you said, 27 times. They've got it right 7 times. Now, in the last 50 years or so, we've seen several such soft landings occur. It's 2023, and yet we haven't really been able to master it. Why is that? What makes it so unpredictable or so hard so many years on?
Well, part of it is the nature of the moon itself. If you were going around the moon, the amount of gravity that you feel in different parts of the orbit changes. The moon is a lot more lumpy than the Earth is. It's got big, dense sections. And so that makes orbital prediction more difficult. It's hard to know exactly where you are. There's no GPS. So where exactly around the moon are you? How do you even figure that out? And even though we've taken lots of images from the orbiting vehicles of the plateau that Chandrayaan 3 and Vikram are going to land on, you still don't know the fine details. Imagine if you were trying to land a helicopter somewhere in India and you looked and looked and looked, but then just when you got close to the surface, you had to sort of close your eyes and then just descend the last 50 meters with your eyes closed. It's sort of that level of difficulty. And that's why the engineers at Isro have been working so hard since Chandrayaan 2 to improve all of the systems, to make the landing gear wider and more robust, to try and give extra layers of backup. And it is possible to land on the moon. 3 other nations have done it. And I think India is really poised right now to be the 4th nation in history to land on the moon. The scientific impact of that and the inspirational impact of that for young Indians right across the country. But it all comes down to that last descent and touchdown coming up within a day now.
Very true. And, the point that you also made about how hopefully this will come through, we've all got our fingers crossed. But also, besides what this will mean for ISRO and the kind of, experiments and the moon mission that they want to complete, Chris, what does this mean really in the global space race that's underway? Where do you think it'll put India in that race?
I work with several Indian companies. I help run an international technological incubator called the Creative Destruction Lab. And right now I'm working with several Indian space companies. One of them is called Dhruva Space. And I think this type of mission of showing kind of the ultimate capability of what Indian science and technology and combined capability can do, it's extremely inspiring, not just to young Indians across the country, but to young business owners and young inventors, people who are looking to do something that used to be impossible. You need to have an inspirational vision of what might be possible to then drive yourself to make the most of your own capability. And when I work with the Indian companies and see the educational capability, the insight, the brilliance of the minds, and the opportunity that's opening up now, it's really showing just how ISRO and space exploration in India is coming of age. And if you can land on the moon, I mean, you can do anything. And to me, that is the real essence of what is being attempted tomorrow.
You spoke about how this is so inspirational for every Indian youth watching right now what ISRO is accomplishing. There are a lot of cynics out there who question, Chris, what's the need for a developing nation to invest so heavily in space, to invest so heavily in space exploration? What's your answer or response to that?
Well, I think it's a really important question to ask because everything has to be done in balance. But I challenge anybody who asks that question, how much money does India spend on health and welfare and infrastructure to take care of the billion Indian people? How much money is spent on that versus how much is spent on research and development and exploration? And I know for Canada, we spend an enormous amount of money on taking care of the Canadian people, but we also spend a little bit of money on inspiring and exploring and pushing the edges of technology. And I think it's important to do both. You don't want to get way out of balance, but I think it's important to truly get the exact numbers of how much is spent on taking care of the people, but also how much is spent on pushing the very edges of what we know and understand. And when I was a little boy, it was because of the moon landings that I decided what I was going to do with my life. It's why I got multiple university degrees. It's why I challenged myself to become an astronaut and to eventually command a spaceship. And I'm Canadian. I'm not from a country that used to have a space program. And so, yes, you need to take care of the people, but you also need to give your young people something that is so inspirational that they make different decisions with their lives to make the absolute most of themselves. And that balance is important, but I think what we're doing right now is a really key part of India's future.
That's a very, very interesting perspective. Chris, and I'm going to say when rather, not if, Chandrayaan 3 is a success, when that soft landing is completed, does it essentially set the stage then for a manned mission? As someone, who's gone repeatedly to outer space, does a soft landing then mean that, we're ready for that next step of a manned mission?
When the very first human being stepped onto the moon, when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, he described it as one small step, obviously, but a giant leap for all of humanity itself. But you have to make those small steps. You have to incrementally improve the technology and all of the people that build those machines. You have to allow yourself to make mistakes on the way to eventual success. And with Chandrayaan 1 and then Chandrayaan 2, we've made those small steps collectively as a group of people and push the technology a little bit too far, leading now, hopefully, to success for Chandrayaan 3. But there's a lot of numbers left after 3, 4 and 5 and 6, and it's only limited by the imagination and the collective will of the Indian people where this will take them. There are Indians right now selected as astronauts who are training to fly into space. You can't encapsulate science and technology and inspiration more clearly than in trying to develop the capability for Indian citizens to be able to look up and see a fellow country person flying across the night sky. And that's coming fairly soon. And with what we learned from Chandrayaan 3, it will lead to eventually not just an Indian citizen flying in space, but traveling all the way to the moon and walking on the surface. There's a Canadian going to orbit the moon late next year. That seems impossible to me. And yet, because of the small steps, that's happening for my country. And because of these steps of missions like Chandrayaan 3, it's happening for India.
steps that you've taken has ensured this moment for your country largely. So I'm hoping that there'll be many Chris Hadfields for India also very soon. Chris, I will tell you this, that, with all of this talk of Chandrayaan, of what Isro has accomplished, it's piqued a lot of interest among Indians about space. And you've been there so many times, a former commander of the International Space Station. This is a tough ask. But can you tell me one experience that truly stands out for you? When you think about your journey in space, when you think about your experience in space, what's that one moment that always comes to mind?
Akshita, I was so lucky to spend about half a year in space. I went over India thousands and thousands of times, but I think my best moment when I was outside on my first spacewalk. We were south of Australia, sort of north of, in between Australia and Antarctica. And while I was outside on a spacewalk in the darkness, we went through the world's aurora, through the southern lights of the world. And I could see the reds and the greens, and they were pouring past our ship and flowing around me, the incredible, beautiful majesty of our planet. And it's very scientific. It's the Earth's magnetic field and the energy from the sun, but it glows in this beautiful ribbon of color. And this little kid got to go outside and experience that personally. This little dreamer from Canada, I got to surf on the world's aurora. And of all the things I've done in my life, of all the myriad experiences, to be able to personally experience that as part of our first steps away from the world, it was profoundly moving and beautiful to see our world that way and to recognize where we are headed collectively. It's a memory that is seared into my brain, and one that I hope more and more people get to experience as our technology gets better and better.
You've described that so beautifully. I half wish that instead of a journalist, I chose to be an astronaut after this conversation. But thank you very much, Chris, for taking the time out and joining us here in India today. This was a beautiful conversation and so inspiring for all of us here. Currently greeting Prime Minister Modi as he's touched down here for the BRICS summit. He's just reached his hotel, and as always, the Prime Minister taking time out to interact, to meet with the Indian diaspora, gathered there in hordes to welcome the Prime Minister to Johannesburg. These are pictures we're far too familiar with of the color, the whole, the big welcome for Prime Minister Modi every time he touches down in a foreign country. And now in Johannesburg for the BRICS summit, Prime Minister Modi there being welcomed by a massive Indian diaspora who, by the way, have been waiting there for hours. Our reporter on the ground has also been showing us how many of them have been waiting for this exact moment to catch a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And while there are going to be many takeaways from the BRICS summit, it's also very important to talk about this connect with the Indian diaspora that the Prime Minister enjoys. In several circumstances, we've seen this. And every country that the Prime Minister touches down, the Indian diaspora doesn't disappoint. They turn up in large numbers. It's a chance for them, essentially, to show off Indian culture, to once again celebrate their Indian roots. And that's what they do there, coming out in large numbers, getting a chance to shake the Prime Minister's hand, getting a chance to click selfies with him, getting a chance to take his autograph as well. The Prime Minister touched down, in fact, just a few hours ago in Johannesburg. He's got a packed schedule ahead, largely meetings, one-on-ones. There's a lot of questions about whether a bilateral with China will take place, considering that Chinese President Xi Jinping is also there. But for the moment, let's talk about the images on your screens, because optics-wise, politically, there's been a lot of talk about how the Indian diaspora pulls all stops to ensure a grand welcome for Prime Minister Modi. He is currently at the hotel that he's going to be staying in for the next 24 hours. And these are images that we're getting to you right now of Prime Minister Modi getting a grand welcome yet again. You can hear chants of Modi. You can see, in fact, huge number of people trying very hard to shake hands with Prime Minister Modi. But this is, of course, for them a huge moment as well. As sitting outside the country, they get a chance to essentially welcome the Prime Minister into the nation that they are currently residing in. You can see several children there also waving the tricolour in their hands, trying hard to get a chance to shake hands with Prime Minister Modi. Many of them have got their phones out, trying to click pictures, trying to quickly get in a selfie with the Prime Minister as well. And the Prime Minister taking his time, ensuring that he greets every single one of them. With many of them also seems to have a personal chat, a word or two in exchange before he makes his way out back into the hotel. These are live images that we're showing to you right now of Prime Minister Modi arriving at his hotel in Johannesburg to a grand welcome there with the Indian diaspora. Lots lined up as part of, in fact, the Prime Minister's schedule at the BRICS summit. You've got all of the leaders who've arrived there. The big question is about whether there will be a bilateral between India and China. We'll be connecting with my reporter Peter in just a bit to get you the live updates. He's been getting us constant ground reports from that very location, from, in fact, the hotel where the Prime Minister is residing. As in fact we track the latest that is coming in right now, let's show you those pictures once again of the grand welcome for Prime Minister Modi, and the Prime Minister also going ahead and also reaching out, going ahead and entertaining many of the requests that people have from him. Let's cut across to some of the reactions from that excited Indian diaspora.
All the strength to continue.
What's your name, ma'am?
Narish, my name is Narisha Jagan.
And how long you have been here in South
I beg your pardon?
How long you have been here in South Africa?
I was born here. I am 3 generations here.
Okay. Do you have any business or something else?
Do I?
Do you have any business or something else?
She's retired.
Yeah, I'm retired.
Medically.
Okay, so that gives you a sense of the flavor on the ground, the excitement, the color on ground as the excited Indian diaspora got a chance to meet with Prime Minister Modi. He is there for the first in-person BRICS summit since 2019, and the Prime Minister is also going to be a part of several bilaterals with some of the leaders who are present in Johannesburg. And like I said, there's a big question mark of whether there will be a bilateral between India and China, between Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping. I'm slipping into a very short break here on 6 p.m. Prime with these images. We'll be right back with lots more. As the sun sets on today, tomorrow brings a new day and history beckons India. As tomorrow evening, by this time, we'll have the great news. I'm going ahead and saying it with confidence that we'll have the great news of Vikram going ahead and making that soft landing on the moon. Let's get you all the developments that have come in so far. India is all set to script history in its space mission. All of us are on the edge. Everyone extremely excited for the landing of Chandrayaan 3. Isro has released the latest pictures of the moon clicked by lander image camera 4. This is on August 20th. As per Isro, the mission is on schedule. Systems are undergoing regular checks. India today, meanwhile, has accessed ISRO's Plan B. In case of any delay, another attempt of landing will be carried out on August 7th. The second landing spot is 400 kilometers from the chosen site. Our next image comes in of Allahabad University students making a sand art of Chandrayaan 3's successful landing on the moon with the caption, "Hum honge kamyab." Mariappan, an artist from Coimbatore, created a 1.5-inch miniature lander module using 4 grams of gold to celebrate Chandrayaan 3. Preparations are underway at several schools to celebrate Chandrayaan 3's successful landing on the moon. Plastic models, school halls being decorated, special songs being sung, school kids also ensuring that they're a part of the Chandrayaan fever. And prayers are pouring in from all quarters for the successful landing of Vikram. Devotees offered special namaz at the Islamic Center of India in Lucknow to seek blessings for Vikram lander. Pujas and havans are also being performed across temples in India. In Varanasi's Kamakya temple, a havan was performed by devotees. Now, I'm sure by now all of you know that yes, Chandrayaan 3 is going to be making a soft landing on the south pole of the moon. But have you ever wondered why? Why did Isro choose this particular part of the moon? It is going to be more challenging, but there are several reasons why Chandrayaan 3 is aiming for that south pole. Let's decode that for you in our next report.
3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
The moon is just 25 kilometers below India's Chandrayaan 3. As a new chapter begins in India's moon tryst, 1 billion people are praying for its successful landing. The Vikram lander is aiming to land on the lunar south pole, which is a difficult feat. So what makes the soft landing near the lunar south pole incredibly difficult? The south pole of the moon's rugged terrain lies in the shade of perpetual darkness and plummeting temperatures. This is where researchers had previously discovered the presence of frozen water. Chandrayaan 3's successful landing will expand knowledge of frozen water on the moon, potentially one of the moon's most valuable resources. Scientists are interested in pockets of ancient water ice because they could provide a record of lunar volcanoes, materials that comets and asteroids delivered to Earth, and the origins of oceans. If water ice exists in sufficient quantities, it could be a source of drinking water for moon exploration and could help cool equipments. It could also be broken down to produce hydrogen for fuel and oxygen to breathe, supporting missions to Mars or lunar mining. Attempted landings on the moon have failed before. Russia's Luna 25 craft had been scheduled to land on the South Pole this week, but spun out of control on approach and crashed on Sunday. The South Pole, far from the equatorial region targeted by previous missions, including the crewed Apollo landings, is full of craters and deep trenches. Chandrayaan 3 is proposed to land in the plateau between two craters, Manzinus and Boguslawski, and a third, Simpelius. Additionally, an alternate landing site has also been proposed. At the mountainous South Pole, the terrain is difficult and dangerous with major craters, minimal sunlight and temperatures below -300°F. If all goes according to plan, Chandrayaan 3 is poised to achieve a historic milestone as the world's first lunar mission to execute a soft landing near the moon's south pole. Bureau Report, India Today.
And that That's all we have time for on this edition of 6 p.m. Prime. Thanks very much for tuning in. And don't forget to join us tomorrow from 7 a.m. I'll be joining you live from right here from Isro, which is where Team Chandrayaan is currently based, getting you all the updates, live tracking of lander Vikram and much, much more. Thanks for the moment for joining us. Good night.